right. Welcome back. Wow, we had a little break there.
Yes, we did. Little reset.
Like I know, like I was telling Quentin, life was lifing.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Um,
Yeah. Feel
I don't
like a
know.
lot was going on. It I mean, obviously I've been going through this whole change, right? Of like, what do I do with my life and how are things looking? And I do feel like a little bit shifted recently where um I must be finally kind of coming out of my fog because all of a sudden a lot was happening.
Yeah,
And I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, it's no more like, "Oh, what do you do during the week?" I record on Tuesday. It was
right.
like all of a sudden there were all these things that were, kind of, needing my time, and so actually my schedule got a little funny for a couple weeks,
Yeah,
and then, of course, you were camping, and
yeah.
I love did you actually go camping?
Well, I'll tell that story in a second. We tried.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Alright, he tried to go on camping. Well, you were planning on going camping. He was trying to have a little staycation of some sort or a vacation or a break or something. So then we were like, "Oh, well, you're gonna be doing that." So anyway, but it's all good. We're here now.
Yes, we are. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, life be life, and I think, um, sort of in a similar way, I've been like, getting out of the fog or whatever, or more so, like realizing what relationships like I really want to pursue and like think.
Mm,
How do I wanna, like, activate this? And, like,
yeah.
obviously, career is, like, one of your, whatever, however you wanna phrase it, career, work, your dharma, whatever, it's like you have a relationship with that too. Um, so it's been really fun to, like, recenter, reorganize, and just express, like, express, and, like, um, yeah, just through the expression, it seems like things are starting to happen, things are starting to move and, take form.
I
So
love that.
yeah. Okay. I don't know. I mean, let me tell you about the camp. Okay, so I know we had talked about like talking about grief. I don't know if you want to talk about grief, but
We'll
there's a
talk about
couple.
it, whatever you wanna talk about.
All right, dope. Like let's just talk about life a little bit. I just said Dharma. I kind of want to emphasize that. Maybe you could define it a little bit more. We could like play with like what that really means and sort of like an outlook. Maybe not just Dharma, but, like, even, like, Dharma, your spiritual practice, or just, like, these things that, like, make up life, that aren't, like, usually spoken of, like, in the Western context, but, like,
Mhm.
are pretty, like, fundamental, I guess, and, um, yeah, so sort of these concepts, so I've been trying to, like, take that approach to my life where it's like, "Okay, how do I wanna have a life, like, there's only one. I know that it's not gonna go according to my plan, but, like, what is my plan? Like, do I ha like, I'm realizing, like, I've already subconsciously had one. And even, like, reflecting on our last episodes one thing I said in a clip I posted was, like, we're co-creators and, like, our words have power. Um, Not just, like, our words that we speak, like, what we think and also what we write down, like, all of those words have power. And just reflecting on my life where it's almost like by the time I was 18, I probably got asked like a million times, what do you want to do with your life? And thinking like when you answer that question with such conviction and such thought like over and over and over again, and then obviously as you start your career, like
Yeah.
I feel like that started to even create an inertia.
Mhm.
It's like this is like that. And you know, you're talking about transition in career, like transition in career and also transition in life. Like for you, it's like a hormonal shift and, a health shift, and then for me, it's, like, just, like, I'm turning 30 and it's, like, you're kinda, like, reflecting on all your past life and thinking, like, "Okay, which direction do you wanna go?" And so, yeah, so, like, just
I was just
being.
gonna say, you're
Yeah.
turning 30,
Or
and
no,
as
I
you
just
said
turned
that,
30.
you
Just
just
turned
turned
30.
30.
Yeah.
So you just turned 30. Happy birthday, by the way. And, just turned 30. That just made me think back to my 30th birthday
Yeah.
and thinking about, like, what my life looks like compared to what it looked like at 30. and what I
Mm,
thought I was going to be doing at 30. At 30, I was working for a hedge fund in New York City, and I was living in New York. 9/11 hadn't happened yet, or had it happened? Yes, 9/11 had just happened. Um, but I was still in New York working for the hedge fund and thought that that was the trajectory of my life.
mm.
And all that has happened to me since 30 has been some of the most chaotic, wonderful, extraordinary experiences. And I would say I had a lot more fun between, you know, 30 and 50 than I had between 20 and 30.
Mm,
It's
mm.
been amazing. I mean, the journey is like, I feel like 30 is just the beginning of just getting started. Of like, but
Yeah.
also 30 is really a challenging decade. I had a really hard time also in my 30s because in your 20s, it's like everything that's going on with you is still kind of charming and cute.
Mm.
So any quirks you have, any health issues you have, anything that's kind of cute, you're like,
Yeah.
whatever, I'm 20, I'm really resilient. And
Mm.
whatever, I'm 20 and everything's kind of acceptable when you're 20. When you start going into your 30s, a lot of stuff starts developing and you start being like, oh, this anxiety I have isn't cute anymore. It's not funny.
Yeah.
This this wandering and not knowing kind of the direction I'm going is getting a little less amusing. This lower back pain that I have is now suddenly actually, I'm not rebounding like I was. And then
Yeah.
there's all the stuff of like, if you're somebody who drinks or does drugs or anything like that, you're going to start noticing, like, even if you smoke weed, you might start noticing, like, hey, my lungs
Yeah.
are not tolerating the smoking like they used to, and they're starting to have some feels about it. So it's just such an interesting thing. Like, I'm sorry, I jumped all over you, but
Oh, you're good.
I just like really, when you said that 30, that image of me being 30, turning 30 was so significant. And then when I was just like reflecting, I was like, oh my gosh, like all the wonderful things that have happened between 30 and 50 is just mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. It really, I mean, you know, I don't even know where to start on that. Like that is so true. And I think like, when I was younger, I didn't really, obviously understand that. And I think even when you're younger, your brain isn't fully developed and like it's almost like the game of life starts to switch to kind of tackle those things that you're talking about. Like when I turned, well, for me, I feel like it kind of started. This is kind of where grief can
First of
wrap
all,
in.
wait, aren't you 32?
No, no, no. So my okay, like let's
Wait,
do it real
let's
quick.
go back because all of a sudden now I'm confused about how old you are.
All right. So my birthday was April 12th, Aries.
Okay, you're Aries. And then I was like, wait, why am I wishing him happy birthday? Isn't he an Aries? Sorry, guys. I just confused the heck out of myself. In all fairness, I just drove back from Myrtle Beach yesterday. Still a little.
Yeah, wiggly squiggly.
Okay,
It's
so
all
yes,
good.
he's an Aries.
Yeah, yeah.
He
Aries
did not
4.
just turn 30.
I did not. Aries. Uh, and I just turned 30. Yeah, so 95 is when I was born. And what I can say with certainty too is like, Rada, like from 50 to 70 is going to be pretty dope for you because like I was born when my dad was 50
Yeah.
and like I know we had fun. So I'm going to say like even though like the health issues um, you know, issues might increase, it's still like you just spend more time chilling. It's like you spend a little more time chilling and it's like and then you do things that you like and I've what I really appreciate about like the perspective of having older parents. So my mom was 33 when I was born, and it's funny because she was like, when I was 30, when she said when she was 30, she was like, all right, like enough's enough. Like, all right, I gotta decide like what I want to do. Like, I think for her it was like main things like stop cussing, um, and a couple different things, and then
I
like
love it's like stop cussing. You know what it was for me? Smoking. I was
that
like,
was
you shouldn't be smoking at 30. Like once you're 30, it's not cute anymore. Smoking's
yeah.
gross.
No, I feel like yeah, for
Yeah.
me it's sugar. Like for me, and I'll get into the story for this is like for me it's like sugar and porn primarily. Or like
Yeah.
not just porn, but like lustful content. But it's like, bro, you're 30, like 30 plus married, like you're over here and like I just you just gotta kinda like even when we're talking about like even though judgment isn't necessarily the goal, but it is necessary to like get through certain obstacles in the mind. Humor too is a good tool, like to like overcome some mental obstacles. Yeah, so for me, I'm like, I'm not trying to like be addicted to cookies. Like, I don't know, there's something about that that sounds so childish. Like I don't want to just have like, not that no disrespect, but and then the other thing is like, yeah, it's like I don't know, like you're just 30. Like, I don't know, something about just like being like, oh, did you see that girl? And like thinking about that. It's like I saw a pack of like 12-year-olds doing that the other day, and I was just like, and I was like, I know
Yeah.
that's where it started, but I'm like, this is where it ends, and I think like just so things like that, right? And it's so let me get okay, well, let's talk about life a little bit because yeah, so like I'm thinking about my relationship with life, and I can really talk about grief in this because I think just grief also makes this happen too. Like 30 major milestone, no,
Yeah.
but also just like grief, like things being taken from you, quote unquote, or being removed from your life, like that sensation can really make you like look at that. Where I was like, I remember like right before my dad passed, there was a couple things that he said, and also like around grief, and like let's say someone lost someone, or um I'm gonna say lost someone plus a breakup or like a bad business breakup. Like these
Okay.
are all like things that like really on some levels can be equivalent because not everybody's meant to be married or have kids, but these, your worst thing's your worst thing. So, but it's like all when something bad, quote unquote bad happens like that, that causes you, a lot of emotional damage. Everything around that event like starts to like get intensified. And like the weeks before, like, okay, what happened before this? Like, what's happening since? Like,
Mhm.
public example, not to distract, but just like it's like Charlie Kirk, where it's like, what happened before? What happened? What was he saying? Who was he talking to? Who were his friends? Da 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 da. But even in our own lives, it's like, what happened before the breakup? Where's my mind at? What happened this? Okay, what happened? Or what happened before? Were there any signs that this guy was gonna hurt himself or others? Like, what happened?
Mhm.
Well, I found like through that process, it really like forced me to be like, okay, what am I doing in my life? Like, it could be tomorrow that I don't have a life anymore. Like, I don't want to spend any second not doing something that I don't think is dope. And also trusting myself and know that like trusting myself enough to know that like I'm not lazy. Like my natural disposition isn't just like nothingness. It's like no,
Yeah.
like I want to draw, I want to play, I want to sing, I want to like make love, I want to cuddle, I want to communicate, I want to have fun. It's the natural inclination, like the sober, serious mindset about life is like full of different, even organizing and cleaning is dope. Like you get in the mood to do so. Like you might not want to do it every day, but there are certainly moods where it's like, all right, time to organize. Like, so
Yeah.
I think I had to like approach my life like that. And I realized like, maybe that is like sort of wrapped into my dharma or my overall like life view. I'm not just one thing, like, or I don't just get rewarded, you know, um, spiritually or materialistically just by like the work that I put in for my career. It's like I get rewarded when I like be patient with my wife and or with my kids or not kids. Well, if I had kids, but my dog.
Mhm.
Or when I like even when I clean in the house, like or organize or all these different actions, it's like I can find joy in these things because these things aren't like meaningless. These aren't meaningless tasks. And
Yeah.
I think like all my life it's like, brushing your teeth, going to the bathroom, um, with porn, masturbating. It's all these different things are kind of just done on autopilot. They're just done like subconsciously. Smoking too or eating sugar, or these different things are done subconsciously. And I think like um for me, like adding more meaning into every single aspect of life where it's like, okay, I might have gotten into an accident today. That's like down 100, but like I brushed my teeth today. Like I took care of my body. Boom. That's like +3. Boom. And it's just like to gamify it in my own mind and to
Mhm.
have like a better way of like assessing like, um, yeah, just assessing the balance in my life. So anyways, I was wondering if you had any more insight into like what like dharma means or like swadharma or whatever the terms are and like yeah, and how that might be in your life.
Yeah, so my understanding of Dharma is like it's almost like your life's purpose, like what you're supposed to do with your life.
Mm,
And so when you find your Dharma, then you are going to be the most fulfilled because that is what you were put on this planet to do or to be. Um, However, I was thinking, I wanted to actually look in these two books and see if there was a definition because I wanted to see if we could come up with like a,
ooh,
let's see. Sometimes they talk about it like as duty, which is interesting.
hmm,
Um,
hmm.
so let's see, book 420. Oh, sorry guys. Henson's riled up. Um, Trying to see if in the Yoga Sutras whether they have like some kind of definition of Dharma or whether
Mm.
where it talks about it. But also we could look in maybe this. So hold on. Oh, well, that's funny. They don't have a huh.
Let
I
me
don't
see.
have
I'm gonna
anything
go
on
look,
here.
see if I got a book too.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting to kind of like. I'm sorry, guys, that this is kind of annoying, but I'm gonna actually stop this recording while we look these up real quick.
Yeah.
Okie dokie, we're back. So I did not find exactly what I was looking for, but Dharma is kind of like this sense of like duty, what your duty is, or like sometimes in Buddhism they call it like cosmic law. Um, but certainly like growing up, what it was more focused on is like trying to figure out like what your purpose is and living in alignment with the universe and how you're meant to live and um sort of whom you're meant to be. And so I think that's interesting. Like, I think maybe the way that I was raised in it, and that's why I was trying to find a definition, which I couldn't actually easily put my fingers on. My definition and the definition that is more traditional in Buddhism is a little bit different.
Mm.
And so I thought that was kind of curious that the way that we were taught it when we were young or when we were growing up was a little bit different than the more um, broad definition.
Hmm. You know, okay. I want to share with you what like I sort of found. I'm gonna take a little couple texts. This is from the Living Gita,
Good.
Sri Swami Satchidananda's interpretation. So this is from the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. And
Excellent.
so there's going to be a few excerpts I'm going to try. So I actually went to Svadharma, um, which is like basically the same. So I'm
Thing
going to,
is, for Dharma, is it like more personal than the like broader Dharma? Is that
yeah,
the
like,
difference?
yeah, I
If
think
I
it's more
remember
personal.
correctly, that's the difference.
And what I like,
Because sometimes, like, I don't study this stuff all the time. I'm not somebody who's like, so sometimes I'm just pulling this out from, it's like if somebody was asking you about American history and you were trying to remember what you were taught in school. So it's not like I'm a current, yogic scholar. So nobody think that I'm a current yogic scholar. But I'm just trying to pull out some stuff that was taught to us in school. So I
absolutely.
appreciate you pulling out the text so we can look at the text. So what does it say in the Living Gita according to the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna and Arjuna?
So references chapter 2 verses 31 through 33, chapter 2 36 through 38, and then chapter 3 333. So I'm gonna read that because I just like glanced over those so far. So chapter 231 starts as, furthermore, looking at your own duty, you will see no reason to waver. For certainty there is nothing higher for, and I've always wondered how to say this. Is it castratia than a righteous war? But it's this Kshatrya. Um
KS. What
Yeah.
is it? KS. Say it
Okay.
again.
ASHATRIYA. It just means like the warrior class, the kingly class. Um, and then I'll just, so then it goes, happy indeed are I'll say it as Kastrayas, Arjuna, called to fight in such a battle that comes of itself, like an open gate to heaven. So let me read that again. Happy indeed are the Kastrayas or the warriors, Arjuna, called to fight in such a battle that comes of itself, like an open gate to heaven. But if you don't fight when it's your duty to do so, you lose your honor and incur sin. All right. So then he goes, people will continually recall your shame, and for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. The great charioteers will suppose you withdrew from battle out of fear. Those who thought so highly of you will take you lightly. Oh, this is actually very interesting. I've been thinking about this for a minute, actually. And your enemies will deride your strengths and slander you. What could be more painful? If you are killed, you will gain heaven. If you are victorious, you will enjoy the earth. Therefore, rise up, Arjuna, resolved to fight. Seeing the same in pleasure and pain, gain and loss, victory and defeat, and battle, just for the sake of battle, then you will be sinless. So that's the end of the reference in chapter 2. We'll go to chapter 3. It is better to do your own dharma or calling, even imperfectly, than someone else's dharma perfectly. Even better to die in your dharma than in another's, which brings great fear. And then I'm just gonna read just because it's like right there. I'm gonna read a little bit of Swami Satchidananda's commentary. So that was
Mhm.
the translation so far. Goes, yours for Dharma may change over the years. As you grow, your thinking becomes different. This for Dharma of a baby is to crawl, an adult to walk. It can change, but it just flows. It's not that you consciously decide saying, this is no good, I'd like to do that instead. It flows. Even without your knowledge or planning, new things come.
You know what that makes me think about is, like, when people always say, like, nobody can be a better version of you than
Mm,
you.
yeah.
Like, you are unique, and so you just have to be who you are
Mm,
with all of everything, right? Like, and so I think that's kind of like, to me, that's sort of what he's saying is, like, you get to just, be at the stage you're in, be at the, um, level you're at, be at the, uh, you know, interests that you have. Like, all of that stuff will come naturally to you if you just allow it to be.
mm,
And so the way and the path forward, the problem is we're always trying to compare ourselves to others or trying to be like other people. And they're saying, like, don't focus on other people and trying to be like them. Just be according to what you know and what resonates with you. And again, what your duty is. They use duty a lot. But duty, I think, like, in a more modern term, is like, what you were set out to, what you were put here to do, like the work that you're meant to do. And work is also weird, but like
mhm,
the purpose of you being here. And so that's why I say, like, you woke up this morning, maybe that was your whole purpose of the day.
mm,
So stop comparing yourself to, like, oh, this person woke up and they, did 5,000 things and they, solved world hunger and they did all these other things.
yeah.
Maybe for you, your purpose was just to hold space or to go out and care for the trees and hug them or be aware of them so that that could help nurture the planet. We each have our role to play.
Mm,
And I think as long as we're comparing ourselves to others, we're going to be kind of struggling, and it's going to lead to, um, they often say, like, depression has to do with, like, looking at the past, and
mm,
anxiety has to do with worrying about the future. So, like, when we're just in our present state, we're like, okay, everything that happened in the past just happened because it was meant to happen, because that was our dharma. That was what was meant to play out. And everything that's going to happen in the future is also going to happen seamlessly, easefully. We're going to end up exactly where we're meant to end up. So I think that's kind of like, for me, my understanding when at least through Swami Satchidananda's interpretation of what Dharma is and what it means.
Mm. So, building on that, I think yoga articulates the point of view that, like, yoga is about peace of mind, that, like, it argues that we can use our willpower to reinforce peace of mind and to develop, the capacity to seek it in different situations and how to maintain it throughout day-to-day life. And so I was like, "Okay, well, maybe that's my duty." And then, okay, well, when I'm in that space, when I'm in that mentally clear space, like what ends up happening? Like little kid Quentin comes out. Like, okay, what does little kid Quentin want to do? Well, he wants to explore in the woods, like and have fun with his friends, and he wants to sing, and he want like and it made me think like, well, what have these first 30 years been about? I was like, okay, well, one of the first things I ever did when I was 5 was a talent show. Like, and I sang a song, and I remember, like, wanting to sing so bad, and I always, like quickly, I had something happen and that, got discouraged, and then I was really big into art, like, one of my first baby pictures is me dressed up as an artist, and, like, I did art 3, I used to go to art shows, and, like, I used to love drawing, and my friend used to make comic books. I'm like, "Okay, whatever happened to that?" "Oh, well, my cousin moved away, and I just, let it go," and, um so I was kinda doing things like that through my life, and, even, like, playing football, like, I used to love playing football, and then, couple episodes ago, I mentioned that I play football, and then I ended up hurting my rib cage, but regardless, I'm still gonna play it anytime I can. But these little things, like, have been, like, on my mind and repaying, like, "Okay, what's here?" Like, people run for a living. Like, I'm like, "Huh, okay, well, like, what's
Mhm.
this?" Alright. Like I said, martial arts. People do martial and I'm not professionally. I mean, not you can get $100 here, do it. I'm a my Mars is in Leo, which adds a little competitive edge to me. But so like these are the things that I like. Like we're like, okay, I like these things. What if you got into them and like actually tried to be good at them and had a more sober approach. And I think, well, not even what I think. What I've observed is that like I don't have children yet, and I think or ever since I was a little kid, like the number one thing has been like I just want to be the best father, like the best father I can be. Like, what does that mean exactly? Like, I see the fathers around me, and I realized like the number one thing is that like the father has to be into things. Like, typically speaking, like imagining you have a son or something like that. It's like if you just do nothing all day, like what are they gonna see? Like, no, you want to.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, and then also we grew up like idolizing Renaissance men, right?
Mhm.
Like these type of folks from the Renaissance that were able to do 8 different things. Like, and I'm like, what? We're all like, what just happened was we dropped the veil of constrictment and we just all expressed that. So I'm like, maybe there was something to in all this time, this free time that I've had now. I'm like, what if there was something to that school system where it's like, okay, what if I devoted time each day to do a little bit? And the reason why I think the word duty is kind of important is because duty, like if I said to you, um, you know, you as in anyone, it's like, you know, if you don't work this week, you won't be able to live in your house. You're gonna be like, it's not gonna feel that much of a drag anymore to go to work. All of a sudden, it's like, well, I have to do it. If you're sick, like if you're sick, your duty is to heal. You'll know immediately. You won't really have to try. You'll be like, I just know I have to do it. So I think I was like, okay, well, not to have anybody compare yourselves to me, but just like set your own standards. You know what you like. Take it seriously. Like, it takes a little bit of discipline to get off that initial friction of wanting to do something that you like often, but you've done it before. And so I just started to think like, what if like a more thorough expression of Quentin is my duty? Like, what if I've been like limiting myself by thinking I can only, support, myself through one avenue of my creativity, through my like you know, either yoga teaching or construction. So I was like, no, like you can draw, you can sing, and the thing is, like anyone who's done any of these things for a living knows that you get better all the time. Like it's like all of these things, everything's like a muscle. So I'm like,
Mhm.
what if that's the duty? And what if that is, what if there's something there? Like, what if more, and I realize this as as I see my grandparents age and pass away, and my father age and pass away, like at the end of life, that's all that's left is like, what am I going to express? How am I going to creatively express? Like, okay, I want to make this. And then now it's like, I can say, I've got this plant from Nana. I've got this bowl from Nana. I've got this from granddad. I've got this ring from dad, as a, it's sort of like, the things that don't stay is the person, it's their expression. Like, I was like, okay, what if, like, this is, I think I started my journal like April 29th. So it was like 2 weeks when I really let it sink in. I was like, okay, what if, like, from this point forward, I just try to have everything that I do be a body of work and don't know what's going to be what? Like, I wonder if Marcus Aurelius wondered that we'd be reading this journal like thousands of,
Probably not.
like all these people. So it's like, what if I just had that approach where it's like, this is all like, this is now homework, has to be done, like, and just kind of shift the mindset. And like you're saying,
Mhm.
30s sober, and not even sober in that sense. It's just like, I don't want to be deluded. I don't want to be like restrained anymore, or these restraints aren't cute because I don't have, you feel like that, like, crest of, like, just like that pure thrust of life that was like, that kind of got you through anything. Like, as you turn 30, you're like, wait a minute, like, a couple of my friends are dying, like, and you start to kind of shift your point of view. So as I've done that, it's been like, okay, I can't do everything. And I love the integral yoga model. So it's like, what are the 6 expressive ways that match the 6 kind of like japa yoga, hatha yoga? What sort of like things that in my mind like correlate to that? Like, what's bhakti to me? Well, singing and dancing. Like, they go hand in hand to me with bhakti. So it's like, I'm
Yeah.
practicing bhakti, I'm trying to be more devout, but I'm also, while I'm doing that, what if I sing a little bit and work that in? Okay, hatha, well, that's easy. I want to explore. I want to trail run. I want to be able to move my body, like, not to use this flexibility and this balance to balance on rocks and climb on trees and stuff like that. Um, I want to be able to sit and just draw, like, be able to visualize something, like, use like meditation. I can use that power now to like create an image and then draw it, and just kind of hold it there and then examine it there and then move up the tree and see what that looks like. Okay, let's sketch that. So I've realized that, like, the integral yoga process of, like, and we can even break that down too. It feel like it correlates to, like, and then japa is also really cool, and I feel like that correlates really good to mundane tasks, quote unquote mundane tasks, stuff that you don't really have to focus on watching the distance. You can just focus on a mantra, or mantra meditation. If you can't do, like, if you can't hold beads or anything like that. But yeah, all these things, like, I was like, okay, what if I had that approach and thought, okay, I have my spiritual practice that I'm trying to develop a little, that I'm developing, and then I have this like expressive practice, and say, okay, what if these are the things that support me, like, as they did when I was 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and like, and then, just because I'm me, it's like the opportunities are coming through these
Mm.
activities that correlate to the way that bring money, like, that pay for the rent, that do these certain things. And but at the same time, just like in a work career, like, there's challenges. Like, I'm not free of that. Like, if I was at work, I could have came in and someone could have broke a gas line, or someone
Yeah.
could have broke their head at the end of the shift. Now I'm working a 19-hour shift. So also, when you live your life, like living my life like this, where I'm not in the corporate world, I'm still presented with challenges too. Um, and I see those challenges now, if I'm looking at this through that context of the Living Gita. Challenges are more so battles, like, not really battles in a negative sense, but more so like, this is an obstacle that's presented in front of me for my own benefit. It's like a test. It's like a growth challenge and opportunity. So I've been talking for a while. I'm gonna pause there.
That's interesting because, first of all, I like what you're saying about the branches of yoga because this is why I'm always telling people, like, yoga is not something you do on a mat. It's really something that gets taken off the mat, and it's very practical and something that you can use throughout every moment of your life. And really, there's some practices applicable to anything you're doing. And doing the basic practices, doing basically asana, meditation, pranayama. particularly, will support all the rest of the practices and then everything else you do in life. And so I really feel like, yoga is something that as you develop more and you start applying it more and you start delving into it more, you start to see like this is something that's really it's it's a lifestyle. It's not just something that I'm going to do for an hour and a half a week. So I love that you were kind of like presencing that. And then it's interesting, the Dharma thing was kind of making me think back to grief. Because I feel like, when you're not doing your duty or you're not living in alignment with who you are or the awareness that like everything is happening as it's meant to play out, because that is your life story. Often grief happens because we are resistant to the change or the things that are happening around us, and we feel like we're losing something as opposed to just feeling like something is transforming. And we want to hold on to what we have. We want to hold on to what's in this moment. So whether it's like a job that we love or a person that we love, we want to hold on to it and we want to like possess it. It's the attachment that's causing us the suffering. I'm not trying to spiritually bypass anybody's grief. I feel like grief is a process that for better or worse, I always say like, why when every human being is going to die, haven't we gotten better at it? Like, wouldn't you think like we'd accept it? Like somebody would die and we'd just be like, yeah, okay, well, that's what just happens, right? But no, it's like such a heart-wrenching, difficult thing to go through. And we have this incredible grief process. And I think that's true kind of straight across the board. I do think there's certain cultures that are better at their grieving process than others. But I don't see any culture that doesn't have some grieving process over the passing of a loved one. So I think it's just universal, and that's part of what's supposed to be our experience is this process of letting go and expressing the emotion and going through the whole thing. But I do think it definitely like some of the suffering comes from like, why did this happen? How did this happen? I didn't want this to happen. I wanted this person in my life for longer. I wanted this person to stay with me. And then it could also be translated into I wanted this job for longer. Um, so I think that as we're looking at it, it's kind of like twofold. One is just the acceptance of like, okay, this is part of our process and this is what we have to go through. And there's no like easy way out of it, because if there was an easy way out of it, we would have like, you know, done some kind of hack and figured out how to rewire our brains so that we didn't have to feel grief, because I don't think anybody really loves grieving. It's not really the most fun experience when you're in it. I think it's a really healing experience. I think you grow a lot from it. And I think the process overall is a wonderful thing. But when you're in it, nobody's like, oh, I love this. I just wish I could grieve some more.
Yeah.
Boy, isn't it great? So I think like it's kind of, yeah, we just kind of have to accept that it is part of our human existence and try to allow for the letting go of the attachment as much as we possibly can, and saying, just as we have a dharma, just as we have a life, just as we have karma and dharma that go together, then other people do too. And we can't change other people's path. We can't change their trajectory. We can't change their karma. We can't change what they're meant to be doing in life. We can't change any of that. It's not up to us to change. And so there's a lot of acceptance that I think gets to happen. And it's when we resist that causes the suffering. When we accept, that's when we're able to find peace through it. And I think that's kind of like what the Buddha was sort of talking about when he was like, life is suffering, and the only way through suffering is non-attachment. Because I feel like one of the main ways to not be attached is just to accept what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, the acceptance piece is,
By
it's
the way,
like,
I'm terrible at it. I'm talking
uh,
really, I'm
you
talking
know,
really
I was like, you're
intelligent right now. I
cancer.
don't want anybody to think I'm good at it.
I was like, no,
Just because I said it doesn't mean I actually do it all the time.
oh my goodness. I mean, the grieving process is such like an illuminating thing. I feel like, I think, you know. There's this thing that I've been doing too when I've been crying is I've been saying to myself, like, accept bliss. Like, how
Mm.
do you know this isn't tears of bliss? Like, just accept bliss. And like, when you grieve, you're, often like compulsed to cry. You're compulsed to honestly act in ways that you never really thought you were gonna act. And like I found like throughout that process, like it shows you like a depth to yourself and to all the other people around you that
Mhm.
makes you like way more um unique. And I think like oftentimes like depths like it's sort of like this. It's like the grieving process to me feels like throwing up, where it's like, yeah, like it would be nice if you didn't have to throw up every time like you ate something bad, but you ate like this belief system that is causing all this suffering, and then now you got to throw it up, and it's like this person's gone, and there's things that like yeah, we all know everyone's gonna die, like we all know the approach, but we all have our own different like mental proclivities and fears about death and views on death and like like I've I'm in a Christian household, like grew up in that kind of background. It's like all of our, funerals, it's like, all the people are crying, but at the same time, it's like everyone's like, this is not the place to cry, like they're in a better place now. Or like,
Right,
you
yeah.
know. So I like the
Supposed to be
Buddhist.
a celebration.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a celebration, but it's like
Yeah.
it's just like it's involuntary. And also learned too. Like a lot of the times, like yeah, you kind of learn how to grieve, just like how all the other emotions are expressed. Like you learn how angry should you be at this, how upset should you be at this, how happy should you be at this. Like those are certain things also that can be learned behaviors. But um, to me, it's like the grieving process always gets you closer to that with which you are, which is that with which you can express. Like that's what you are in a way. Like human beings. Like I was thinking about this. I was like, human beings, like you know claim to be like at the top of consciousness. So what does that mean? Like all the other living things, like, and you see this in people, like there's horse people, there's octopus people, there's penguin people, like all the other animals and all their attributes like express themselves through us. Like we have
Yeah.
peak features, we have pride features, we have dominance features, and we have lamb features, and we have all these different features within us. So like that's what I love about loving who you are and loving your nature, is like this like diversity of expression. And like so grief oftentimes like it'll or what grief signals is that you're concentrating like your life in this thing, and now you're forced to widen your point of view. And like so like from my own personal experience and most of the people that I've met and like anybody that loses someone in their life, like because I went through a death and a tragic death and breakup kind of back to back. So I find that like I can always say to people with certainty, like even like as my dad was dying, I'm like, this is the funniest I've ever been. Like I've never been this funny before. Like there are certain attributes of my creativity that started to flower in ways to like, because I don't think, yeah, to just flower in ways to just help adjust the things where it's like, okay, what's um yeah, my creativity is like is being challenged here. So what I was thinking was I was like, okay, well, when someone passes, it's like they don't, and especially now with like the yogic thinking, it's like they don't really like pass in the sense of like they still have an influence. And even like in the Christian background, like we always say like they're still praying over you in heaven and still,
Mhm.
and all that kind of mindset. So it's like I had to lean into that where it's like, okay, this person might be gone, but like, where were they really ever in the first place? Like this person, my dad or my ex or whoever, um, they lived in my mind. Like that was their home. Like I
Mhm.
touched them, I felt them with my mind. Like I interpreted that sensation of like, um, through this machine. So I'm like, anyways, they were only ever as close as I thought about them at any given time. Like my father and any of these people. And the quality of our relationship was always the quality of the thoughts that I had about them primarily when they weren't around. Like, and then also the quality of thoughts when they were around. But like, so as he passed, it just felt like, oh, I can see like little attributes of him, um, and even in the breakup, her, like, the things that I felt were very supportive and loving about my ex too, like, were popping up into my life and through different people in ways that, like, I felt like magically appeared. Like, the same person I talk to every single day, they start using different phrases that, like, only this person used, or, there would be these interesting connections between people that, like, would spring memories of this person or of this circumstance, and so then I got to the point where the grieving process also forces you to, like, kinda, like, confront these past things, but it also forces you to kinda seek help, like, um yeah, like, you're like, "Wow, like, I acted in a way or I did things or I feel a way I've never felt before, like, someone else must have gone through this, right?" Because, like, I've heard stories, like, what do they think? What do they see? What have they done? What have that process done?
Mhm.
And that's where, I think that's where I found yoga. That was a space in which I really started to turn, um yeah, I started to turn to yoga and just different tools. Like, I always thought, like, mental health was kinda like a made up kinda field before. I was just like, whatever." Like, I was a naturally happy person, and, like, I was just like, "Whatever," like, and I was just very sheltered from that kinda thing. Like, I
Mhm.
had friends that were sad, and I remember certain kids that were sad, and I was like, "That's weird, like, whatever. Everyone should be like me," you know? But I did have a partner at the time that, like, was definitely struggling, and she was getting into yoga, but I was like, "Yeah, you only get into yoga or these things, like, if your life is, like, upside down or, like, whatever."
Oh,
Right.
interesting.
And I'm like, "Oh, well," and it's funny because I say to my students today, I'm like, oftentimes, a lot of my students come here at the recommendation of their doctor or their therapist.
Right, yeah.
So I will also say, so then there's that, but then also I would be like, just honestly being disrespectful if I didn't mention like plant medicine or just medicine. So most people would go, a lot of people have gone and gotten antidepressant and medicines like that, Xanax. I don't know that spectrum, but just all the medication, whatever it is to help get your mind in the right spot because of some grief related,
Mhm.
trauma related incident. But then for me, like, I'm just not that kinda guy, and so, like, for me, when my dad was passing away, I had never even really smoked. I never smoked at that point. I was actually very adamantly against it. I actually broke up with girls. I broke up with the girlfriend because I thought she smoked, actually, when I was younger. So I was that kinda, like, dweeby kid in that way. But, smoking herb specifically, not, like, cigarettes. But when my dad was passing away and had cancer, they gave him, like, cannabis, like, pills and stuff like that, and so I was
Mhm.
like, "Okay, let me see, like, if they're giving this to my dad at the end of his life, this made me more curious of it." And then, like, I had always kinda heard of, like, ecstasy, and I was like, that sounds like that doesn't really sound like that's up my alley." But and I'm just saying this because I know many, 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 many people who have had this thought process. Like, most people don't trust big pharma, but they don't. But they also trust word of mouth. Like, people be like, "Have you done Molly? Have you done MDMA? Have you done LSD? Have you done this? Like, this is what's happened. This helped me get through this." So for me, I landed on mushrooms, and I was like, at the very least, I know it grows out the earth. Like, I know the person that's like where I'm getting it from. Cool. And so, like, I will say, like, whatever medication or whatever choice you make, like, I'm not judging nobody. Everybody does their own thing. But I do feel like in a lot of people's stories, like, that does play a role where there is some sort of revelation or experience that happens that can't be gained from just speaking to somebody else and can't be realized from an external voice or experience.
Hmm,
And,
yeah.
um, so yeah, let me pause right there.
Well, it's interesting 'cause, um, I think it is like an internal process, and of course, we land on this a lot that, like, you can't live somebody else's life.
Yeah.
So, you can't live their grief for them either. You can't live their dharma for them. You can't live anything for somebody else. It all has to be, like, what works for you and what your own internal process is and what your own path is. And so, anytime you're dealing with something in life that is challenging, It's hard because we wanna make these blatant statements about everything, like, "This works for everyone." I find this with diets all the time, it cracks
Oh,
me
yeah.
up, like, people are like,
Yeah.
"Everybody should drink lemon juice every single morning," like, "Squeeze
Yeah.
lemon into your water," like, "Everybody should eat gluten-free, everybody should be vegan, everybody should be keto, everybody should be paleo," like,
Mm,
that is just not how we work.
mm,
We are not cookie cutter. Everybody has to find out for their own selves what is the best thing. Now, it is helpful to have incredible teachers like Swami Satchidananda who can guide us and say, you can do whatever you want. And let me guide you to the things that probably are going to make you feel better, the things that will help you get, in touch with your own inner peace better, things that will keep your body from having pain. Um, there are generalized things we can come up with that say, like, if you do this, you're probably going to have, this reaction. So most people respond well to this. But again, you have to just like, it'd be so nice and easy if we could all just be like, everybody just do this and you'll be fine. But really, you have to find out for yourself what your own path is. And that also goes for grief. I mean, it's really interesting because that you're bringing this up because we have been my husband and his immediate family have been going through, and myself have been going through a lot of grief over my sister-in-law because my sister-in-law was shot and killed by her husband earlier this year. And it's been a great loss for the
okay.
family. She was a super big personality. She was she was like this just inc- like she filled up a lot of space in everybody's lives.
Mm,
And for that person to be gone, whether you loved her or hated her, there is a huge void that exists now with everybody who came in contact with her. And I think it's not just even our immediate family, but even in the greater community, because she just was such a large personality. I want, of course, to make everybody okay. Like, I wish I could just snap my fingers and everybody could be through their grief and start feeling better, but it doesn't work that way. We all have to go through our process. And unfortunately, we can't prescribe what that is. So, like, my sister in law's daughter, my niece, her grieving process is much different than my husband's grieving process. They can support each other, but it is not the same. It's not going to look the same. And so if he's trying to compare himself to her or she's kind of trying to compare himself, so she's having a little struggle because her husband's grieving process around when his mom passed is much different than her grieving process about her mom passing. And so sometimes her husband doesn't exactly understand because he's like, this was my grieving process. I don't know what's going on with you. And so trying to really just reinstate, like, everybody has to go through their own process and it's got to take the amount of time it takes. Being accepting of that while still hoping that nobody gets stuck. Because you can also really get stuck in emotional things and you can get stuck in your trauma. You can get stuck in your grief. You can get stuck. So trying to help everybody move their way through at a pace that is their own pace, but at the same time, not leaving anybody behind, right? And,
yeah.
like, allowing them to just be stuck in the grief. It has been an incredible learning experience, and, on obviously a heartbreaking experience, but also on a higher level, um, I'm grateful for the sacrifice that my sister-in-law made to allow us all to go through this excruciating horrible experience that also in the end is going to allow us to be closer to God, be closer to our own inner peace, be closer to our own understanding of the universe and what's important and what's real and what's unreal and all of these things. As any traumatic experience, that's always how I feel after a traumatic experience. I always feel a lot of gratitude for the sacrifices that the people made so that I could have the enlightenment and insights that I get to have from this. I felt the same way after my boyfriend, you know, um, died from the heroin overdose. Obviously, excruciatingly painful and devastating for many years. But in retrospect, I feel a great deal of gratitude over his sacrifice because, um, in him going through that, obviously, I got to learn a lot, and I'm so much more compassionate, understanding. Uh, I can hold a lot of emotion and a lot of grief. Like, people can really let go of a lot of grief around me, and I'm pretty capable and a lot of pain. I can sit with people in a lot of pain. And that's all because of my past experiences. Whereas, like, I realize that sometimes I'm unique that way. There's not a lot of people that can sit with you. The people who've been through a lot are generally the ones who, like, if you got something going on, they're good ones to go to because they can
Yeah.
sit with you through a lot of funky stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And it's
find
nice
that.
to have people who will sit with you through funky stuff. Because guess what? Funky stuff is gonna happen. We're
Yeah.
not all gonna get through this life without loss and pain and trauma. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. And I find like, especially when someone passes or like passes, breakup passes, and also just again, sorry for your losses and gains, really, also. But um, yeah, it's like uh, I was gonna say something, but I'm gonna switch it now. Like, really, really, it's like it's really a gain because like the tenderness that comes from those experiences, like the softness, like, because it's like, usually when you go to the bank and something's happening, you're just like, oh, that guy's moving too slow, or like you're just kind of thinking like that. You're not thinking like they could have just like got the message that their dog just died, you know what I
Mhm.
mean, or something like that. And
Or their sister-in-law was just
yeah,
shot
or
and
their
killed by her
sister-in-law was just
husband.
shot. Yeah, yeah, literally, exactly. And it's like now it just gives you a whole nother context in which to view the world. And also, like, I really do want to emphasize the unpredictability of the actions. Like, when you like, you ever like get really happy. Most people can probably relate to this who haven't gone through something devastating, but when you get really happy, you might jump up and scream and yelp and make a noise. You're like, I never made that noise before. Like, who is that? Or like, like when you really like a person or whatever, you're like saying things to them that
Yes.
you never would have thought you would have said or something like that. And I think that grief is like that too, where like, the anger, the depth of those the depth of fear really gets to express itself. And I think, what I found, or well, it wasn't from me, but in the animal spirit deck that I reference all the time, there's this one called the golden egg, and it's meant to represent like the heart. And
Mhm.
there's a reference in there, they call like the heart center the unstruck sound. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, like obviously we call it heartache, heartbreak, like da da da. And it's like when you're in that deep grief, it's like what got struck, like what sound is left, what's that resonance. And after sort of the mind goes through like that like hurricane, and it kind of settles, it's like oftentimes most people can attest to this that have gone through something tough, where it's like live more freely, live more boldly, live life, like don't take things
Mhm.
for granted, be grateful for what you have. And so much of us, like, this is what made me, and it also, when you lose a particular thing, it makes you think of it through that particular context. Like, okay, what would my ex want me to do? What would my sister-in-law want me to do, or or sister want me to do? I had a friend whose um girlfriend recently lost a twin, younger than me. They were like, the dynamic duo. They played sports together. They're like really athletic, like, so.
Mm.
We're
Yeah.
it's like you're saying, like, being able to, like, have that grief happen to you, and now you can hold this space for this person and, like, really talk about it with, like, kinda like a deep smile deep down, like, even in the middle of this conversation where they might be crying or whatever, it's like, you can still smile because it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like, I remember, like, however low you're feeling now, it's gonna be that high. So, what I wanted to emphasize about the sound, though, like, the analogy that I think clicked for me most recently, and might be relevant, like, let's say you hit a gong, boom, or you string a guitar, like, that's that grief, doom. but that gong will last, that vibration will last and reverberate for much, 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 much longer
Mm.
than the actual, like, strike itself. And oftentimes, like, that's when the music is made, is after the strike. And, like, what happened in my life is, like, I feel like my life actually came alive when I stopped, when these processes happen. Like, when I was real younger, like, my dad lost his twin at 58, and his dad, so my granddad, this was, like, back to back, and this was 2 years after he got anthrax. So I got to see, like, how my father handled the grieving process. And then, my mom's mom passed away in 5 years before my dad did, to the day, on 2014. So, I'm coming home, and, like, my mom had no idea, like, Nana was even, like, really in a bad condition. And so seeing people grieve also, like, gives you a certain context where you're like, if I see my mom grieve, like, I can only imagine, like, the grieving that has happened in Gaza, or, like, Ukraine, for example, or
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
spaces where it's like, that's just one, or these are just I'm just one person with a couple examples that are, like, quote unquote normal examples. Another
Yeah.
example that I really want to emphasize is that, in reference to this, like, my Jewish cousin, he died at 18 in a car crash, and when I was 20. So getting to see, like, his mom, my mom's sister, his mom kind of processed that, and getting to speak to her in December of 2024, and, like, see how that's changed and how that's expanded and how that's grown into something different. So if you are going through something that's, like, tough, not only, like, does it give you better perspective, it also makes you realize, like, whoa, like, we're doing things that are, like, harming people, and, like, we're putting people through a grieving process that you don't really need to do if you don't really need to do it to get an end to your means, like, why are you doing this? And I think that's one of the main gifts that grief gives you, is it gives you, like, that compassion that that you can then extend and extrapolate, that sympathy. Really, it gives you a depth of sympathy that helps you, like, really execute your dharma really better. Oftentimes our dharma calls us to be more sympathetic and
Mhm.
more compassionate. The battles that we face, the challenges and obstacles that are presented in front of us, like, they're usually pushing us to be more peaceful, to be more, um, when it's time to rest, we rest. When it's time to act, we act. When it's time to dance, we're dancing. When it's, and kind of, like, act that way. So that sound that struck by whatever, like, heartbreak or heartache or even, like, physical pain, like, people break a leg and now they're going through this rehab, or physical health, now they lost their job or whatever, like, then another thing I didn't even mention was jail. Like, some people get imprisoned, and now that is, like, a removal of life in a way that causes grief. And if you're in jail, obviously you're grieving, the people around them are grieving, and continuously grieving, because, or anybody that's in grief, you know, you still have to do your taxes, you still got to pay your bills, so all the normal, like, life ailments that would have already been tough, they could also feel magnified and intensified by the tenderness of that grieving experience.
I think it's also perspectives. Like, we tell ourselves stories about things, and the stories are what also cause us attachment and grief. So I just watched, they just had an update on HBO in the case against Adnan Syed. Have you followed that at all? Were
No,
you a serial listener?
no.
So there was this podcast that came out years ago called Serial, and it
Mm,
was actually kind of the first thing that got people podcast crazy. Like, everybody was obsessed with this podcast, and it was this story about Adnan Syed. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'll let you look it up. But he was basically accused of murdering his high school girlfriend,
mm,
and he was put in prison. And then this podcast was basically like having people look into this case and say, it doesn't seem like everything added up. And she was really like, I don't have any feels about it one way or the other. I'm just trying to report on kind of what the
yeah.
scenario is. And so, anyway, getting to the point of my story here, um, Adnan Syed was incarcerated for like 20 years. And eventually, he was let out because they realized that they had sort of inconclusive evidence. It wasn't that he was found not guilty, but they basically said this was not tried quite right. And so they're waiting to see if maybe he'll have another trial to be not guilty. But at any rate, they said he shouldn't be in prison. What was so interesting to me is here he is, right? Getting out of prison. In some ways, such a joyous occasion. And everybody's like, "Oh my God, aren't you so excited to sleep in your own bed again?" Like, first of all, like, it's his childhood bed from when he was a teenager, and he was
Yeah.
yanked out of that bed at night and then got thrown in jail, and, like, now is an adult man, right? And is trying to navigate his life. Now, first of all, Adnan is an incredible example, and he's just been really, if you've ever had the opportunity to listen to his story or to see him, he's really dealt with the whole thing in a really incredible way and really chose to use his time in prison to really just talk about Dharma and accepting your Dharma and your duty, really just accepting this is where I am, and so I'm just going to make the best of it. Interestingly, when they asked him how he felt about being out, he said, "Yeah, I mean, obviously it's really great to be with my family. I'm really happy to see my mom and my dad and, be here with my brother. And I have slept next to the same men for the past like 20 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard that I'm going to go to sleep tonight for the first time without my brothers,
Yeah.
these people who became my brothers." And so seeing that everything can have layers of grief to it, because he is going to have to grieve the separation from these people who he has been spending the last 20 years with. Now, everybody would be like, "What are you talking about? You should be so happy you're out of jail. You shouldn't feel sad. You shouldn't have any grief." Right? That's what the story would be. But the truth is he is having to navigate that loss as well, because it's an incredible loss. He got ripped away from people that he has just spent the last 20 years creating really deep, meaningful relationships with. And now here he is again, having this huge shift in his life. And while he's being returned to his family, he got yanked away from these people who have been his friends and brothers for the last 20 years. So I think the truth is like, or, the reality is that so much of it has to do with the stories we put behind it. And that a lot of it is acceptance of just the fact that there will be loss. In leadership, we always say that every choice we make, there's prices we're going to pay for every choice. But there's also prices, like things that we pay for everything that happens. So even though he has this wonderful, beautiful, exciting thing that everybody's been working 20 years to get him, you can't just expect him to be super happy and joyful and go around clapping and being like, "Woohoo, I'm so excited. Woo, look what you all did." He is grateful. And at the same time, he's like, and there will be loss,
100%.
which I think was so cool that he like acknowledged and admitted that in his interview and as he was talking about it, because it helped people realize like everything has feels. You're going to have feels about things, and just allow them to happen and allow it to wash over you and allow the acceptance, like we were saying, just like learning to surf a couple, podcasts ago. I think we were talking a lot about surfing the waves. That's part of it, is allowing just that grief to wash over you and say, "I feel lost. No, this is wonderful. And it is also painful. There is going to be sadness in the experience of me being released from prison."
Yeah.
Which, again, is nothing. That's not really what people want to hear. They just want to hear that he's going to be happy and it's going to be happily ever after. And
Yeah. I mean, that's
yeah,
like, it's like if you don't know anybody who's incarcerated or isn't like, if you're not actively communicating with anybody who's incarcerated, then like, yeah, you could have that point of view. But, like just if you're on the inside, it's like, these are his brothers. Like they might have stopped him from getting assaulted. They might have stopped, they might have looked out for him and taken care of him. And meanwhile, he
and
might be
kept
having,
him sane for 20 years while he was locked up.
yeah. And I think a lot of the times, like, there's another thing about grief that is also difficult and just part of the fun is like, you know, sometimes like your loved ones are the most complicated people to be around through a grieving process. Um, because they're also grieving, and so they're acting in a way, and also anyways, anybody who ever has had a loved one knows that like they get the best and the worst. They get the best and the worst from that person. So oftentimes, like, sometimes, like, even and also, people in jail are so funny. This is what I mean, like, the expression, like, I'm glad we are, like, going to there because what you'll see is, like, a lot of the times in jails, you'll see such, like, creativity, such expression, such genius, like, under that, like, suppressive system, and, like, yeah, they're certainly not happy, and I mean, there's a lot of things not to be happy about, and almost, like, grief is, like, the intention of the American penile system, like, if you're happy then it's not really jail, like, in the American mind for some reason. So you
Yeah.
need to be grieving, you need to be upset, things need to be uncomfortable, but so even in those circumstances, grief still presses us to express, and what are the best songs? Some of the best songs, some of the best music, and like I was saying was the flip side of grief exists, and that's what I've seen 30, 40 times fold in my life is like, I almost cry tears of bliss every other day. Like, I cry tears of joy. I mean, I feel like I cry tears of joy way more freely and openly now because I have cried so many tears of sadness. It's like, I'm gonna sit here and cry because I'm sad. Like, in front of y'all. Like, I'm gonna certainly cry in front of y'all, like, joyfully. And letting myself get there. And what I
Yeah.
found is these and okay, I want to spend as much time as I can there in that space. What are the things that get to that space? Okay, well, I gotta meditate. I gotta take care of my body. I gotta eat right. Okay, I gotta be more patient. I gotta, and that the I gotta. Okay, maybe this is starting to turn out to be my job. Maybe my job is like maybe to be like yeah, maybe this is my job, like, try to be like a and I love, like, I'm sorry, try to be like a clean vessel, and like, Krishna, Lord Krishna is carrying a flute, and that's meant to represent sort of like, God, life force kind of blowing through us, and the sound that we make is we sing, we dance, but we plan, we organize, we build, um, we explore, we make connections with not living things. Astrology also helps, like, break this down also even more specifically. Obviously, the more you learn about the energy centers and the chakras and, like, the root and the sacral and all these different centers and all these different ways to, like, break this down, but we have a complex multidimensional expression that is really ever expressing itself and is always available to express itself given the right setting, and I think that when you're in the grieving process, like, just for me specifically, like, my dad, you know he looked at me like, before he was passing, and he sort of emphasized, he was like, "And you could probably do this for your, boyfriend who passed away, ex." And so I'm like, "What did he really like? Like, what did my father really like to see in me? Like, what did he wanna nurture? What did he wanna flourish?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't think he really like, he liked it that I made money, but he liked it when I was healthy. He liked it when I was
Yeah.
playing. He liked it when I was doing these
Yeah.
things." So I'm like, those are the things that I wanna express. Like, I don't wanna express sitting in a meeting just like, who's that making proud? Like, who's that? That's not satisfying me. I don't think that I mean, I don't feel very reverent in this meeting right now, and I know that that's not really what my parents wanna see me do. They wanna see me happy and flourish and focus on those things, and I think that's probably true for everybody, but when you lose someone or something, what would my dog, like, with your partner, like, what did he really like about you? Maybe your sensuality, maybe your whatever it is, like, how can I nurture that and make that person proud? How can I and like not because it also makes me proud too. It makes me happy, not just for their sake. But I think that grief has really pulled out the aspects of me that matter more that might get buried under like the programming and like this where it's like no, 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 like this is the real root. This is like let's get real, let's get down to the basics. And um express, and, like, and I feel like using that Christian example, or just be like the clean vessel example that many people might be, like, familiar with, or just trying to get out the way so that you can let, like, what's meant to be flow through you. Um, Sometimes we get in a certain mode and we start to prioritize a certain expression of consciousness, but, like, your sensual self is equal to your analytical self. They're all equal parts of the pie, and they all can be nurtured, and it can be taken as a serious endeavor, and there can be a ton of fulfillment in being like, okay, I don't know how strong I can be. Like, these things are obvious with the physical body, but it's like, I don't know how, like, I don't know how clear-minded I could be. I have no idea how joyous I could be. And, having that approach where it's like, I didn't know I could be this sad. I wonder
Mhm.
how happy I could be, really helped in my healing process, and I think a lot of other people's too, is like, once you see what's out there, you're like, "Man, I want more of that. I want more of that." And, so I found like that grief process really reoriented me to be like, "Okay, what is my duty? Okay, my duty is to get after that, whatever that is." Like, and yoga always says, "You don't really have to go anywhere." It's not anywhere that you have to go. You are that. It's just there are some impediments to you recognizing that. Maybe your perspective has to shift. Maybe there's toxins in the body. Maybe a habit needs to be adjusted. But um you are that you are that bliss that you're always kind of chasing and looking for, and that, like, you're over
Mhm.
crying because you might have lost this person in your life, and thinking that, oh, that I'm gonna lose bliss. I'm losing out on an opportunity to experience joy and peace of mind. But, that's just not true at all. If anything, it gets magnified through that
Well,
tender.
nothing external is ever gonna find your peace of mind. And
Yeah.
so nothing no changes externally, no loss externally, nothing external can do that for you. It all has to be internal. My husband recently was saying, something about like, well, I thought every I thought the goal was, because we talk about in leadership it gets to be easy.
Mm.
And he was like, "Well, I thought it gets to be easy." And I said, "Yes, it does get to be easy, but the ease comes internally, not externally. It's not like your outside circumstances suddenly become
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the way that you're able to handle them and the way that you're able to move through them and surf, or, surf whatever those waves are, suddenly becomes easy. So it's not like you're getting tumbled in the waves anymore. Instead, you're learning how to surf on top of them, and then all of a sudden it's really fun and easy, and you're like, waves are cool.
Mm.
'Cause I can actually enjoy this process as opposed to just getting tumbled and, getting salt and sand up your nose and all that kind of stuff. So, I think that we always have to keep remembering that the external change is not what's going to make us happy. It's the internal change. Now, external changes can inspire, they can ignite, they can, create some sort of different shift in energy, but really it's all internal. It's
Mm.
just shifting the internal within you. And so, one of the things that we're doing is we're going to uh, go and stay for basketball season, which is coming up soon. We're going to go be in Myrtle Beach. And one of the reasons why we chose to go to Myrtle Beach for basketball season is because my husband's best friend lives down there and my niece lives down there, so I'll get to spend time with my niece,
Okay.
but also because my husband needed a change of scenery. Because
Yeah.
the grief of being here and constantly reminded of his sister and everything was getting a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I was like, and be forewarned that we're not going to go to Myrtle Beach and all of a sudden everything's going to be okay and you're not going to miss your sister anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. The change has to come internally, and the internal processes and being okay with things, because um that is the only way to actually find real change, real healing, real peace. And you can't find peace outside yourself. It doesn't like, that's not going to find it. It's all, the peace is actually uncovering something that already exists within you. It's not like you have to chase after it or find it. It's like already in you. We're just uncovering all the stuff that's making you not be able to see it or experience it. And so it's a very internal process. it doesn't mean don't go out and have fun. And also, like, your Dharma will help ease that internal process, but your Dharma can really look really different. People always laugh at me because I'm like, I really actually enjoy working in an office. Like, office work is super fun for me. I love going in the computer and the desks and the like typing and the
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff is like really, really rewarding for me. And I always think like, trash collectors, like there are trash collectors who find that job more
Yeah.
rewarding than anything else they could be doing. And
Oh
they
yeah.
really genuinely like being trash collectors. And
100%.
so understanding that like not everybody has to be the same thing. And the contentment will come inside, not because you just changed your external things. This morning, I was talking to my brother's girlfriend because she just moved here and she was working for like State Farm and her job was pretty intense and she was working like crazy. And then all of a sudden she's here and she hasn't decided, she's not looking for a new job yet. They're just trying to get her settled in. And I was laughing saying, it's funny because everybody's like, "Oh, you're so lucky you don't have to work. Isn't that so cool? Like, lucky you, you don't have to work." But it is very challenging to find ways to fill your days and make your days really meaningful when you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And people are always like, "Oh, that's so great. I can't wait till I retire." Or wouldn't it be so cool if I didn't have to work? Or wouldn't it be so wonderful? But there's always the flip side of anything where filling your day is not always easy. And it's very, you can end up just being on your phone 8 hours a day because work gives you structure, work gives you purpose, work gives you something to do, work gives you a way to show up that I think people really take for granted because everybody's so like preconditioned to be like, either being workaholics or, how many people do you meet who are like, I love my job. Like my job is just like the best. I just wake up in the morning and like, I'm so excited about my job. And the alternative is not as easy as you think. So again, don't put on rose colored glasses about everything. Don't think the grass is going to be greener. Just be realistic and say it will also have challenges. I know that you've had some challenges. I know that going from like your situation where you were working so crazy to
Yeah.
being a little free form now and just sort of being like, "Woo, I'm kind of in the wind a little bit. This is really uncomfortable, but I know that it's leading to a purpose." I'm sure you don't wake up every day and go, "Woohoo, like my life is perfect now. It's all easy."
Well,
You know?
it's that's absolutely true. So I think this is like gonna probably bring me to like, probably like my last topic about like my update of my life and just sort of like how that's been going because I remember thinking to myself, I was like, all these people work from home and I was like just kind of like jealous of them when I always had to work, like especially during COVID and I was working so often. And I was like, if I work from home, I'm not gonna be like I just made it a point of like I'm gonna have a fulfilling life. Like, yeah, I'm gonna have a fulfilling life. I'm gonna have a fulfilling life, like no matter what, like no matter the circumstance. And I was one of those people. I loved work. Like what I did specifically is like the best thing I could have done, and I had control over what I did. Yeah, that was probably what I liked about it the most. But I was able to like do the things I was able to do, express myself. Like I could do some design here, do some communicate. I could do a couple different types of tasks, and also walk around. But then so now I'm like, all right, like how do I want I was just kind of like sitting there looking in the mirror, probably like 30, like around that time. And I'm like, you can't take the superintendent out me. Like, there was something about that I really enjoyed. And I'm like, you can't take the designer out me. And that was like really the foundation of it, like the art and got into architecture and civil engineering and like the design. In college, I loved that sitting in front of a computer and just drawing neighborhoods, drawing contour lines, like drawing parcels, drawing details, like how this is going to connect to this, how this is going to be poured. Like, and I did that throughout construction. So I'm like, these are all things that I like to do. Like, why stop doing them? And I just had to like ask myself, like, what's stopping you from doing these things? You like, what's stopping you scrolling on the phone, or
Mhm.
situation like I was saying, like, Why am I on my phone? Like, what's so attractive on my phone that can keep me from doing the things that I know I really like doing? Oh, like lustful content. That's the only thing that's that attractive. What's keeping me from eating things that I know I don't want to eat? Well, sugar, because it's so like addictive and it keeps pulling me to eat. But I know what I really like. Like, I love that home cooked delicious meal, but I just don't want to always have to go out and get dessert afterwards. Like, these are the thoughts I was having. So I got to give credit where it's due. Andrew Huberman had a guest on DJ Shipley. He's not a DJ. He's a retired Tier 1 operator, Navy SEAL, and now public educator on how to build mental and physical health. And so military man, like real earth sign energy, and earth sign represents routine. Like, what's the routine? So if you got nothing to do, you have to decide the structure. And that's what it was. It was like, you're 30 now, you're grown. Plus, like, if work's gonna provide the structure, why can't, to myself, I'm like, why can't you provide your own structure? And if you're gonna devote this much time and effort to, the CEO and his endeavors, and you like your contribution to that, like, why can't you devote that to God? And what does that mean to you? Okay. So that's kind of how the other part of the Dharma was, like the spiritual practice, or whatever that means, like whatever the counterbalance is to your work, your work life, your exterior life, how you perform. And in this podcast, as he didn't say it in those words because he's from a different background, but he said it in those words. He was like, I wake up and I go to work. I do things that are, and he called work brushing his teeth, taking
Mhm.
because his job is, he's a father, he's a husband, he has his job. So his job is to be prepared for his job. You know what I mean? That was the approach. And I think that really helped. I have, even from when I first met you in Swami Kuranananda, and creating my own sadhana plan, and I had my thing planned out and I followed it well, and but there are certain days where it's like, I don't want to wake up and do that meditation. But then sure enough, I end up scrolling my phone for 2 hours, and I'm like, you could have just done the meditation instead. Like, now I don't want to meditate. And then now because I didn't do my duty, I incurred sin. And I love that they use that phrase, because I'll be like, now I'm in a random disagreement, or I stubbed my
Yeah.
toe, or now I have to be late to something. And that's what happened. It was like, so when I started to say, like, no, this is my job. Like, I don't know how I'm getting paid directly from a career, but I'm gonna start with this right here. This is my job, and I'm dedicating this. Like, if I had to get paid to do this, if I was teaching a class to do this, what would that cost? Or just taking things more seriously. And it's like, okay, maybe my job is really to be an integral yogi, to be a lifer yogi, to be the founder of lifer, to be the householder, to be the husband, the son. These are the duties. Okay, what does that mean? Well, I got to be prepared for them. Well, how do I like to prepare for them?
Yeah.
I like to read a little. I like to move a little. I like to do a little meditation. Okay, cool. What time do I want to do that at? And then being like, okay, this is what's advised when you make any of your own spiritual practice plan, is kind of like sign it. Like, this is my contract. This is what I'm going to try to do to the best of my capacity. Why? Why do I want to do this? Um, what else is there to do? I mean, and I wanted to say this, like, for coming from a Christian background, I want anybody that hears this to hold this, like, dear, is like, this makes me want to tear up. It's like, all the religions have many, many, many rules and many different things to say, but, like, from the Christian point of view, there's only two: love God and love your neighbor. This is your duty. And anything that impedes you from doing these things, like, that's like the battle. That's like kind of the simple thing. And, like, so what are the things that are causing me to judge my neighbor and not love them and not want to take care of them? Um, and what are the ways in which, like, I could love God better? And I think, in using our analogy earlier, like, God created human beings to express multidimensionally.
Mhm.
Like, we're in earlier episodes, we talked about, like, the slaves, like, in them singing and their dancing and, like, that expression. And, like, obviously, maybe just because I'm a Black American, this might be like my particular Dharma responsibility, is like, I think that we're very, very good at that, expressing
Mhm.
human nature diversely, speaking creatively, singing creatively. Just like, I don't know, like, there's something about that I've been kind of wrestling with, is like, I feel like that's loving God in a way, is like, living a full human experience. And I think that insensually too. And I found that, like, that's why I like to say that I'm a yogi or like follow this school of thought, is because the only place where I really saw that flourished the most was in the yogic like philosophy and thinking, and made room for, okay, if you want to, if like some people are extremely sensual and all their lives they've been trying to like look at all these other people that don't care about these types of things. Like, no, there is a way that you can get more perfect in your sensuality. Like, there is a practice. There is a practice that correlates with yoga, and is benefited through asana, pranayama, and meditation, like just off the rip. And so yeah, so I think that, like, as I've sat back, had more space and time to be like, what do you really want to do? Hmm. I want to live a connected life. I want to promote freedom and joy. Okay. How? Well, I only have my life experience. Okay, so I can only go off of things that I've previously enjoyed. What are those things? And then so now where I'm at is like you said, like I have a like extreme need to be like scholarly, or like sit down and plan. Like for me it's like writing and thinking and planning and doing math and like projecting in the future. Like I have to do that for hours a day at least, like in order to really feel fulfilled. So I'm like, I can just do that now. Like, you're the founder, like draw things that just create these visions. Like, maybe no one will see it yet, but just like get out there and start drafting. And sure enough, I draft this thing on this index card, and now all of a sudden my artist homie's coming over and helping me make logos. So all of a sudden I met a photographer that's being attracted to the expression. And why I like like, this is what Leo means, is Leo represents heat of summer, full human expression. But what happens when the sun is out? Life grows. Like, life is attracted. Life is attracted to that expression. So, um, when it comes to your career, like whatever it is that you're doing in your job that really truly brings you joy, like emphasize that. And I really do genuinely feel like that's what's actually paying you, like quote unquote paying you and supporting you, is you putting that surplus, like it's that the energy that you have while you're doing that activity that you love is really what's supporting you. It's what's attracting love back to you. Putting love brings back love, and putting out love attracts love. So when I was thinking about, like, okay, I like design, I really like design, and also, another thing, that life be lifing. Life puts obstacles in your way to help guide you to the right thing. You might think you love this hedge for what you did when you were 30, but like 9/11 came, this happened, now we got to switch. Okay, boom. But the obstacle is placed in your way for a reason. And usually the obstacle, I'm thinking of like if the obstacle is big enough to make you move to where you really feel like you can't go over it or through it, then it's probably going to make you like, I need some help. And oftentimes that might come in the form of like a prayer or something. And the main thing I want to say with grief is that oftentimes when we're at a loss, when we're confronted with an obstacle, don't close your ears. Like, that's the hardest thing. Don't start shutting down, because that like that message of salvation, that like path is still always being presented and being put in front of you. And oftentimes that grief is like, if you're imagining walking on a trail and you see a big rock in the way or a tree across, grief is like you just walking straight, and you just keep walking straight into that obstacle and obstacle, be like, why is it here? Like, it needs to move. Like, this is such a shame. Like, this shouldn't be happening. Would have been a better hike without this obstacle here. Rather than being like, maybe I should look to my right and realize I can just go off trail. I'm on a trail, but this whole trail was made out of just the same earth that's over here. Go off trail, think differently, believe differently, live a little bit differently. And then you find yourself in a different spot, and usually you might even be having way, 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 way more fun. Um, so yeah, I feel like the Dharma is that expression, that full creative expression, and having faith that that expression that's within you is meant to support you, and that the people that are around you love you when you're expressing what you love.
I think that's like such a beautiful, yeah, such a beautiful explanation. And really having that full expression of your whole self. I think that's the key. And again, not having attachment to what that looks like, but really just allowing for it to be what it is and allowing yourself to be who you are in all circumstances, in all ways. That is where you're going to find the most fulfillment in yourself as opposed to just constantly, so much negative self-talk. Was talking to a friend of mine this morning and she was like, I just like, I have so much negative self-talk. And I think so much of that negative self-talk comes from the need to tell yourself how to be different,
Yeah.
comparing yourself to others, saying you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And if we can just let go of that and just be who we're meant to be without comparing ourselves constantly to others, I think that is the ultimate expression of our duty or our dharma, because we're just accepting that this is what I'm put here to do. This is the place that I'm in right now. This is what's happening, and just try to be the most wonderful version of yourself you can, given any circumstances that you're in. And that's really what I mean, going back to Adnan Syed, I really love the fact that when he was in prison, he just accepted it and said, well, I'm going to make the most of my time here. If this is where I'm going to be, then I'm going to like teach people and have brotherhood and, try to uplift all the people around me rather than just sitting here and spending 20 years being bitter that this is where I am. I'm just going to try to make the most of where I am. And so I think you can do that no matter where you are
Yeah.
and whatever your circumstances are. It's really just being the brightest, beautiful, most peaceful version of yourself you possibly can be.
Absolutely. So the last like little thing I want to say is I got like advice from this card earlier today. It was called Turtle, and I really liked to read just a little bit of it. I thought it was pretty dope. Um let's see. So, Turtle, ancient soul, grounded, trusting, at home in the self. And this isn't just about me. This is like just for anybody who this message might resonate with. And I think this goes pretty well with Dharma, interestingly. So, it is wonderful to be. I'm sorry. Let me read it again. Turtle, ancient soul, grounded, trusting, at home in the self. It is wonderful to be in the presence of a turtle personality. Like the beaver, the turtle has a strong relationship with the earth and water elements simultaneously. This helps to ground and connect them to the deeper truths of life, no matter where their travels lead them. Turtle energy is behind all great writers and storytellers as they collect life experiences under their shells for later use. The most potent turtle energy helps us close all the other books and begin to tell our own true tale. This is what I really liked about it. When in balance, peaceful, adventurous, and productive. When out of balance, slows down to a halt to bring into balance and adventure. And I think life is
Beautiful. Yeah.
yeah. Dharma is an adventure. Grief is an adventure. I
Yes.
we have that approach to life. Even that little thing can make it seem a little bit easier.
Yeah, I agree. There you
Cool.
have it.
All right. Well, thank you. I love talking to you.
Same here, and hopefully we will be back again soon with more interesting conversations
Yeah.
and wonderful sharings. Thank you.
Awesome. Peace, y'all.
Om om.